a.m. Happy to have you on 1040 a.m. and News Talk Florida, newstalkflorida.com, and that's across Tampa Bay, Clearwater, Sarasota. We welcome you if you're listening. If you're on our station at WFLA Orlando News Radio, 93.1 FM, 540 a.m., happy to have you as well. And our online audience at neighborschoice.com, glad to see you in our podcast listening group. Thank you for joining us. And now we're joined by a investigative journalist, Kim Dvorak. How you doing, Kim?
I'm doing fine.
It's great to have you on the program. It's been a little while since we last spoke on air, and you always are uncovering different issues and news stories as it pertains to foreign policy, as it pertains to justice and law and order, things going on around the border. And I just wanted to have you on to kind of run through some of the big stories that you've been looking at and investigating. So thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so, one of the stories that has been coming out recently is this U.S. Customs Border and Protection, that they had 10,800 assault weapons parts seized by the Border Protection in Louisville. And it has something to do with something close to home. The shipment was seized on May 22nd. Officers, the article says on cbt.gov, says that the officers inspected the item, which was arriving from Shenzhen, China, destined for a residence in Melbourne, Florida. And the parcel was manifested as containing 100 steel pen samples. This is a common practice of smugglers, manifesting the contraband as a harmless or a legitimate commodity in the hopes of eluding further examination. What have you uncovered in studying this story and looking into it?
Yeah, well, when you look at the numbers on that, it's a staggering number. I mean, this country, we already have a fairly high, especially now after COVID, and we're seeing as these protests wear on longer and longer, we're seeing more and more gun violence. We're seeing our major inner cities, on a weekend basis, killing babies, killing children as part of the, I guess just going to be the weekend report until these cities actually start doing something about those perpetrating these crimes. And in this case, we look to China, because in China, what they're doing is they're facilitating this. And they are happy to work with any, group out there that wants to buy parts to make their weapons, compliant with American law, but also they want to come in and take that away and make these weapons more automatic, meaning they can kill people quicker. And if you look at this, it's not only in Florida. It's happened in Louisville, Kentucky. It's happened in Detroit, Michigan. And Detroit, Michigan, we've seen a lot of violence up in that area. And we have people out there that, you've got CBP and ICE and HSI all coming out and saying that, look, that we believe these weapons are targeted towards the Antifa, BLM type movements, because we've watched the message boards. We've all watched the fact that these organizations are, looking to, perpetuate more and more violence in the hopes that they will derail a second term for President Trump here. So it's quite astonishing, the list of parts that they are getting into this country. And if we can look towards the drug trade as an example, or the money laundering trade, the United States government is only, collecting a small parcel of those drugs at the border, and how many get through. So it's likely that these weapons and these parts for AK-47s and things of that nature, AR-15s, these things are probably coming through the United States, larger than these numbers, just because they aren't able to collect all of them. Although I would imagine at this point they're looking at an awful lot of stuff with China.
So it's also, China's got some things going on. We know they've given millions of dollars to Biden's family.
Yeah.
But there's also apparently a multi-billion-dollar laundering operation for
Yep.
California Governor Newsom. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's entities that make money, dark money, I guess you can say, the entities that make that, they have to wash their money somewhere. And China's been more than happy to work with the drug cartels. So why not work with people who are weapons trafficking? We used to think of weapons trafficking as maybe the Iran-Contra deal, where the U.S. government was involved in purchasing weapons and then sending them down to Nicaragua so that our allies could fight the Communist Party, which was in power at the time. Now they're actually back in power down there, or weapons trafficking with Russia or other countries with the Middle East and getting weapons to dictators in Africa. Those are things that we think about. That's what, when you hear the word weapons trafficking, that's what you think about. Fast and Furious, those types of operations. But here what we're seeing is, in the United States, we're seeing China work with Mexico and work with the cartels to move drugs, whether it's fentanyl or other precursory drugs, to other into this country. And then now we're learning that they're trying to get these weapons into this country as well. So how do we go after China and in essence kind of get the people actually involved into some sort of court, or at least sanctions? I mean, this administration likes to levy sanctions on people. Maybe these companies that are shipping these products into the United States, maybe they need to have some sanctions levied on them so we can slow this process, because we know the money that's used to purchase these weapons are coming from the dark money in the United States. So that it's the easiest way to wash money is to buy something. And what better way than to buy stuff in China, where they're willing to try to risk sending the weapons to the United States directly, in this case.
Well, how long has China been working with these cartels?
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been working with they've had a lot of ties with Mexico for, a decade or two at least. When Mexico built a deep water port in Ensenada, which is about an hour south of the U.S. border, they learned that the way to get around this, the tariffs that the United States was imposing, when they landed in Long Beach, they decided they could just go to Ensenada and then they can move all their products up from Mexico. And now all of a sudden, bam, it's Mexico that's shipping this stuff up here, and they got around the levy of these tariffs because it came under the bill of lading came under the Mexican government. So they're clever about doing these things. They've what better way to undermine your enemy? In their eyes, we're the enemy, than to flood the U.S. streets with drugs, and now flood the street with guns and violence. That's going to further denigrate what America. Law enforcement, what people can actually do to stop this. And when you see a government, I mean, this is actually, this is a government. This can be considered a form of war. Although I don't think that the United States should necessarily go to, war with China. They do need to start addressing this issue. And I think what we see with the mainstream media is this actually should be a front page, top of the show story when you see weapons of that caliber coming in. If this was being given to the far right people, that every news station would be covering this top of the show. So an indication that a lot of these things are going to these left-leaning anarchists is the fact that we're not seeing any coverage. I mean, we're getting our information from Customs and Border Protection. We're getting this from federal agencies. So this isn't just people making stuff up here. So I just think that when you look at this, with Mexico and China, there's no love lost with America right now, especially under President Trump, because he's doing a lot to bash China and bash Mexico. And so there's no sore feelings. They have no problem flooding our streets to perpetrate, this misery that's happening in our inner cities across the country.
So we're speaking with journalist Kimberly Dvorak, And I want to ask you, did you ever look into when those riots were going on real strong, you saw everywhere they kept reporting that there was fresh, nice, brand new bricks conveniently laid out.
Yeah.
They were always there. And I remember talking to a friend in California who mentioned driving by one of those nice pallets of bricks just nicely put there right as there was the rioting going on. Did anybody, how come it's not easier to just like investigate this? You got these things going on over, and they can investigate and surveil every innocent American, of course.
Yeah.
But they can't find out who put those bricks there. Did you look into that?
No, I did not look into who put the bricks there. And I would presume that at least some of the law enforcement outfits are actually looking into that. But, when you have DAs going out onto the streets the next morning after we see, bricks through the windows, all the looting, the stealing, trying to burn down police stations, kill police officers with these things. We're not seeing, the vigor of these DAs going, we are going to go after these people. This lawlessness will not stand. Because we know night after night it carries on. And they just don't want to press their luck. I don't know why they don't want to go after the perpetrators. Because, and it would behoove like the Black Lives Matter movement, who want to peacefully protest, to actually help find who's actually putting things like this out there, because this is staining their peaceful protests. There's no doubt about it. This violence is staining whatever it is Black Lives Matter hopes to gain from all of this. If they wanted to get their message out there, they would help the prosecutors turn in video that they had on their cell phone that they took or something or other. But they're not doing that. You're not seeing this. And so if you're looking to a position of authority and you're not seeing, any kind of tangible results, why would you start working with them? Because, it's not really going to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's something that seems to be a no-brainer that we should know about by now, is who put those nice brand new bricks, those pallets of bricks that everybody kept reporting on, including people I know, telling me firsthand account that they were there. We're going to continue with Kimberly Dvorak in just a moment, but when we return, I want to ask Kimberly, as someone who has known about California, having lived there for a long time, what her take is on Kamala Harris as the VP pick, what we can expect, given her track record in California as Attorney General and so forth. So we'll look into that and more in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. Don't go anywhere. Kimberly, I want to get your take as a journalist about the record and behavior of Kamala Harris in California. The thing I've been looking at is how it seems like they're soft on real crime, like violent crime. They're soft on that. They're soft on the rioting and the looting and things like that. But then they go hard on, nonviolent, victimless crimes. They show her laughing about locking up Cherie Peoples, the woman of color who, had her daughter had a lot of days that she missed from school, but her daughter had sickle cell anemia, and she had all the excuses. And she laughs as she got her 100 reporters out there to film this woman of color being paraded in front of the media in shame, right? So, it's this weird mix of being soft on violent crime, but then tough and throwing people away for bogus, petty crime.
Yeah. Well, a perfect example of that is when she was the AG of California. She would go after veteran organizations. So we have a veteran group, and this happened to be in San Diego, where I was living at the time. This organization was responsible for helping our veterans when they came back to this country after serving in war, and they needed, help paying their rent or help buying groceries. This organization in particular would just cut checks and basically do that the same day when the U.S. government wasn't taking care of their needs of these veterans. So she comes in and she's like, I'm not certain exactly where she got the idea that this group was bad, probably because they were actually helping people. But this was a wealthy family who had, donated all this money to this cause and to their organization, their charity organization. And, she wasn't, she did not want this to happen any longer. She went after this. The name of the group was run by Roger Chapin, and so it went. They drugged this through, the courts. It was ugly. He was, in his late 70s or so. They got a guilty plea. They were excited, and then Roger Chapin ended up dying. And then the family ran the appeal process, and what do you know? They dropped the charges. It wasn't lawful what she had done. And this family had lost their father. They had tried to bankrupt this family who was wealthy enough to run the appeal process. But what's kind of shocking about this is, the play on like this was like a victimless crime. This was actually, they were helping victims, but we'll leave that aside. But something that AGs and DAs will kind of go to is, she goes out and said, okay, look, we have the docket, full. We can't prosecute this case, but she reaches out to high-end, attorneys across the state and said, okay, you charge your rate, and we'll have this person that we're suing and sending to court and all of that. They'll pay your legal bills. And this is something the Democrat Party does in essence to like build like favor within the attorney. So now you understand why we don't want to see tort reform. We don't want to see any kind of attorney reform, because this is what they do. They do this across the board. They'll find people that they just really don't like. They'll try to run them through the legal process. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. But the people involved in these things, they end up having to pay for these legal bills. And in this case, it was millions of dollars that went out to this to various attorneys that worked for the state of California in the private sector, but in essence they got their job from Kamala Harris on this particular case. They do it all the time, and that should be again something that I think people should highlight, because isn't that kind of like using justice to unlawfully, if these people are being held, if it goes to appeals and they win? It's very, very seedy. I understand it's legal, they can do it, but to the level and to the extreme that she used it was just unbelievable.
It sounds similar to what the New York Attorney General announced against the NRA. She wants to bring all these lawsuits to put them out of existence. And they're very aggressive folks there. And it just seems like the right doesn't seem to have the same level of energy and defending their principles as these folks who stand for nihilism and the attack against veterans groups. They want to. I don't know about the NRA. I don't know all their details, but I do know that the idea behind that attack is to try to silence political opinions that are inconvenient for their agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it really, throws the balance of justice into play here, because, this is, justice denied, it could be, a guilty verdict for most people, especially when they go after small people, like the daughter who, had sickle cell anemia. I'm assuming that they weren't wealthy people, and these types of lawsuits that they're subject to, is something that, is, justice denied for them, because in the end, the ruling goes in their favor, but their reputation, their bank accounts are completely affected for the rest of their lives, and they don't have the capacity to actually get out there and, and get back to where they were in a lot of cases. And it just shows you that, and people are afraid of the government. It's used as they use this as threats. They see it happen to, people who get close to the line and, going after, the left, and they come down hard with legal teams and scores of, just lawsuits and a litany of paperwork that these people have no chance at going through and actually, having their case heard and being able to provide a proper defense for themselves.
And it was common knowledge that Kamala Harris was kind of Hillary Clinton's hand-picked candidate during the primary. She liked him, and she's been working with her a lot. So I think we can expect a lot of that same Clinton-style, really creepy, pay-to-play corruption going on in foreign policy, everything, with someone like that in power. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that especially with Kamala Harris, because she's the second most liberal senator in the Senate. She's been willing to flip-flop on absolutely every issue to make sure that she's part of the dream team. She slept her way to the top with married men. She's she just provides, she's just everything that I think women in America should not be, but she really just wants to be in power so much that she's willing to please whomever she has to on her way to get there. And there's no doubt that she'll cover up if there's any paperwork that comes out with the FISA court abuse or the spying on the Trump campaign or whatever else the Bidens have done with their kids and their relationship with China. She will actually cover that up. She will make sure that those things all just go away and are never heard from again. And I'm not certain that's what America really wants, sitting there and being a heartbeat away from the Oval Office. She's not a very well liked person either. She goes through staff on a regular basis, and just like Hillary Clinton, you're in a room with her, she's just mean. I mean, and same thing with Hillary. It's like I was in the room and you go in there and you're like, you know what, this person is not a nice person, doesn't have an air of genuine anything. And it's going to be a little difficult going into this election process with somebody like President Trump, who actually has a whole bunch of personality traits where people actually like him when they meet him.
So what do you think her foreign policy would look like? Because she's probably going to be running the show like Dick Cheney was Biden the way he did.
Yeah, I mean, I think the war machine would be okay with her. Again, she'll sell her whatever it is. She'll sell to the highest bidder. And in this case, the defense contracting industry, they want to sell their equipment to the Pentagon. She'll make way for these sales. There's no doubt about it. She's already proven to, not necessarily with weapons, but how many weapons cases have we seen in California? There's been virtually none. So I think we can expect more war with her.
Well, very good. I appreciate your time, Kimberly Dvorak. It's always great to hear your reports on different things, and we'll stay in touch.
Great. Thank you.